So in this video, let's look at in detail about rows and columns in Flutter. So they are one of the most interesting features, or not features, exciting part about Flutter, using which we can play with the placements of various widgets across the layout. So as the name suggests, it's all about rows and columns. So before anything else, let's start a new Flutter project. So Flutter application, then I will be naming that application as maybe something like rows columns. Then I'm going to give my Flutter SDK path. Where is it? Flutter SDK. So I'm going to change that as um, I will just create a new folder for my project and see. So yes, R and C. Then I'm going to click on next. I have my package name ready. Then I'm going to click on finish right now to create my project. So let's wait till the project loads up. So as you can see, project is ready to work on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to uh, remove all this code. Yeah, all this code. Then after removing that, okay, my system is quite unresponsive. uh, yeah, so after removing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a stateful widget with the name my app, or you can go with any name, but make sure that that particular name is provided over here. So since it's my app over there, I'm just going with my app for the time being. So I have to make a stateful widget. So for that, the shortcut is, once you start typing stful, it should come. uh, it is dependent on whether your system is performing at a good pace or not. So now it's loaded for me. So now I'm going to select that stateful widget. So in that, I'm going to give the name as my app and just click on tab to avoid that red boxes. So as you can see over here, it is returning a container over here. So what we can do is we can just either try removing this container to go with a material app. Inside that material, okay, let's place a colon or semicolon over there. Inside the material app, we have to provide something. We have to initiate that scaffold, right? So for that, let's do so inside the material app, the home should be a scaffold to for the layout, to set the layout. So inside scaffold, let's for the time being go with an app with the title. What should be the title? Let's give the title as uh, rows and columns, right? And then what do we need outside app? Let's go with a body. Then let the body be having something, uh, maybe a text, having hello world. Okay, so what we are going to do is we can run this project right now. So for running that, I have to select a virtual device. So I will be going with this device. So as you can see over here, the Android AVD is starting, Android virtual device is starting. So I'll be waiting till, let's wait till my virtual device loads up. Okay, I'm going to cancel that or close that. So my virtual device is loading up. So you can like neglect these errors. Yeah, so as you can see over here, my what do I say, my virtual device is loading up. So once it loads up, we can just run this app, and after that we can try to hot reload every time whenever there's a change in the app, so we can save some time by that. So as you can see, my emulator has loaded up. So let's try running this application So as you can see over here, my application actually got installed into my device. So let's actually start with rows and columns right away. Okay, so we have two main things to get started with: rows and columns. Okay, so let's look into that. Start with the rows and columns right away. So first we can go with column. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this text widget over here. Okay, over here, then I'm going to paste something like column over here. So I'm going to open the brackets, then inside that we know we have to provide a child, right? But in the case of column, we can have as many as widgets we want, okay, within that. So what we are going to provide is children, because if it's a single child, we call it as a child. If there are more than one child, then we call it as a children. Okay, so I'm going to provide children, so then a widget list will appear, then we inside that we can add any widgets which we want. So for the time being, I'm going to create a container. Wait a minute, container. Yeah, okay, wait a minute. Container. Then inside that, what I'm going to do is I want to change the color to maybe colors dot teal. Okay, so yeah, we can do that. So then I had to fix a size for that too. So I want the height to be 150 pixel, then I want the width to be a 150 pixel too. Then I'm going to reload this application. So yes, now a container of 150 by 150 height and width has been formed. So what if I want one more container? Okay, so I'm going to just copy this code again, then I'm going to come out of this current container, then I'm going to paste that same code again. Okay, so um, I'm going to reload that. So now actually one more thing came over here. So I'll just change the color so that it will be easy to notice. So let's reload that again. So as you can see over here, one more came over here. Okay, then let's try to paste that code again. So there will be three containers inside one column. So I'm changing this color to maybe green for the time being. So yes, maybe we can go with one more, right? So outside this container, I'm going to paste this code again and change that color to maybe deep purple. So yes, so we what we did was we created a column, and inside children we provided four containers. So this is how we align widgets inside a column. Okay, so I'll just make it simpler for you. So once we define a column, we are defining a column, and inside that we can arrange different widgets as rows. Okay, so as you can see, we define this particular column. Okay, so now this is first row, then second row, then third row, then fourth row. Okay, fourth row. So there are four rows inside one column. Okay, so this is what we did. We defined first column, first a column, then inside that we provided four containers as its children. That is, for it appear as four rows. Okay, so once we define a column, the children will be appearing as rows within that. And similarly, once we define a rows, the children will be appearing as a column inside that, as different columns. Okay, so what we can do right now is let's try to change some of the properties of this column widget. So what I'm going to do is, so inside a column there's two there is two axes. Okay, axis, that is cross axis and main axis. So inside a column, the main axis is this vertical axis, that is like this, and the cross axis is this one. Okay, that is horizontal one. So the main axis is this vertical one, and the cross axis is this horizontal one. And inside rows, it's the opposite. Okay, that is the cross axis is the vertical one, and the horizontal one is the main axis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the properties of this column, something like main axis alignment. So I want to change the main axis alignment, so I'm calling that main axis alignment is main axis alignment dot. So we have some features like this. Okay, center, end, space around, space between, space evenly, start. Okay, so we can try everything. So first I'm going to click on center, then let's try reloading this application. So what happened, so our four containers, what happened is our four containers got shifted towards this sender, that is it got arranged in such a way that they appear to be at this sender. So that's what is done when we do this, when we arrange the main axis towards the sender. Okay, so let's remove this and go with a start. So it will be similar to the first case, that is this thing will be appearing towards the top. Let's try that again. So it was the same, right? So if even if you remove this line and run it again, there will be no change, because it's by default it will be the main axis will be aligned towards this start. Okay, so now let's try changing this the start to end. So as you can predict, this whole containers will be moving towards the bottom, that is towards the end. So let's try running that too. So now it moved towards the center, no, so sorry, end. And finally we can try out not finally, like space around. So what the space around does is, it will be arranging all these containers in such a way that it is wrapped by equal spaces, that is this space is actually present in between each. Okay, so this particular space, as you can see, it's symmetrical, right? That is not symmetrical, like this space is same as that of this one. So once these like this space is the twice of this space, because this space is present over the top of this container as well as the bottom of this container, so that will add up to be the double of this particular space. Okay, so that is space around, that is the space will be the left out space inside that particular container will be provided in such a way that it's equally distributed towards the to each and every containers. Okay, so then we have space between. So what happens between what happens in this is, the containers of the first one and the last one will be attached towards the start and this end. Then the remaining space will be equally distributed to the containers in between that. That is a space over here, here. Okay, so that is space between. And then we have space uh, evenly, that is kind of similar to that what do I say, space around. So as you can see, this space is similar to this space is similar to everything is same. Okay, so in the case of space around, the space over here was actually um, half of which was present over here, because it added up in the case of space over here. So that doesn't happen in the case of space evenly. So I know it's going to be a little bit confusing for you guys, but try to understand that. So in the case of space evenly, the space that is the margin kind of stuff around these containers will be same for all the containers, but that is this one. But in the case of space around, this that will be different. Okay, that is the uh, space at the top and the end will be slightly less, that is a half when compared to the space in between the containers. Okay, so that is regarding the space axis, that is the space around and all those that is a main axis alignment stuffs. So I'm going with space evenly right now, so that's quite better right now. So now let's look at the cross axis alignment of this stuff. So it is similar to that of main axis alignment, there's no change in that. So it will be appearing what do we say, in the center, then towards the right side end and similar stuffs. Okay, so one important stuff that is not inside this main axis alignment is the stretch feature. So once we do that, this containers will be stretched towards the extend. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Okay, now that happened. So yes, so now we can discuss one more thing, that is the margin and padding. Okay, So we know what is margin and what is padding. So what I'm going to do is, first let's try to add margin for the first container. So inside that container I'm going to add this margin feature. Then what we can do is there's something called as edge insets, geometry and everything. So what I'm going to do is, if we want to provide a single value to the all the what do you say, borders, then you can call edge insets dot all and provide a common value for everyone. And then try to reload the application. So you can see that the margin of this first container changed. Okay, so and there's another feature, like if you want to provide individual values for each of them, so you can select this one, that is edge insets dot from left, top, right, bottom. Okay, so you can select that. You can provide the value for what do I say, left as 10, maybe top as 5, then right as 10 again, and bottom as 5, then tab, and then you can try running that. So now as you can see, this thing, that is the what do I say, the each and everything has different padding, that is margin. Okay, so I'm going to change this right one to maybe 100, maybe 100. So let's try running that. So as you can see, it has got different values in different cases. So I'm going with 10 for the time being. So that is regarding this what do I say, this mm, this margin. Okay, so we can do the padding stuff also. So but the thing here is, inside containers and all, we can provide padding. We can go with edge insets, maybe dot all. I'm going to provide something called as 10. But when we run that, you will not be seeing any changes over here, because we haven't provided any child to this container, right? So I'm going to provide a child, then I'm going to go with an image. Where's an image, and I'm going to go with an image with a network, yeah, network image. Then I'm going to give an URL to that. I'm going to go get one image from this website, copy image address, then go back to this Android Studio. I'm going to paste it over here. Then let's try running this, reloading this application. So now can you see that our application has loaded inside, that is our image loaded inside that particular container. So what does that mean actually? So if I change this padding to 0 and reload that application, um, the padding, that is the padding disappeared. Okay, so I'm going to provide some padding again, that is, it's something called like 5, and yes, I provided it padding. Okay, so that's it. So let's try one more thing. um, so what do we do, uh, like yeah, let's try to change this main axis alignment. Okay, cross axis alignment. Just try let's try to remove that line and reload this application. So now yes, so this is how it occurs. Okay, now you know the image is actually enclosed inside this container. Okay, you can try changing the height and width and everything. So I'm going with maybe 250 with the height. Then let's try it again. So yeah, this happened. So this thing happened over here because this size actually went beyond our screen size. That's why this error occurred over here. So in order to solve this issue, what you are going to do is you have to bring in a scroller, that is to enable scrolling, screen scrolling. So what you are going to do is to wrap this column widget into something called as single child scroll view. Okay, that is, this will enable the scroll view, but uh, what happens is there can be only one child for that. So we provided that child as column over here. Okay, so if you want more than one child, that is children, you have to go with something called as nested something. So we'll be looking into that in detail. So I'm going to reload this application right now, and that issue got solved because now we can scroll within this application. Okay, so you can see, right? We can scroll over there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that other line of code over there, that is a stretched one, and reload that. So let it be like that itself. Okay. So if we actually remove this particular, so this so you might be wondering, like, we have enabled this space evenly over here, but that's not appearing over here, right? So this happened because we enabled this scroll single child scroll view, because once we enable that, it can have like infinite height, right? So there won't be any use case. So what you can do is say, to bring in space in between this, is either you can go with margin, or you can introduce sized box. So I will just try that sized box outside this first container. Okay, maybe we'll do that outside the second container. So you can just straight away call this thing called a sized box. So what this sized box does is, so if you don't provide any values by default, what it does actually is, it will just create a what do we say, partition between these things. As you can see, it's currently joined over here, so I'm going to create a size box in between that, and when it load, there's something in between that. You can't see that because it's actually similar to something called as since we didn't provide a particular size for that, it kind of appears like it's not there. So what we are going to do is, I'm going to provide a height of 5 for that, and then if we check that, you can see a difference over here, right? So that's the feature of this sized box. So if you want something, some space in between something, and we don't want to put something inside that, so we can actually go with sized box. So yes, that's regarding this sized box. So now this is the basics regarding the columns. Okay, so I just noticed that this is not columns. Yeah, so that's regarding the columns for the time being. So now let's look at the uh, rows. Okay, so for that, what we are going to do is, let's try to include this what do we say, row inside any container over here. Okay, so instead of removing this particular whole code, what we are going to do is, we can try to implement these rows inside any of these containers. Okay, so that there will be, this will be a column as total, and this maybe this container will be having rows inside that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, let's go with the second last container. So I'm going to add a child. So this child is going to be row. It's everything is similar to that of column. So we have to give children for that, and inside that I'm going to go with a container. Then I'm going to provide a size of the not size height of maybe 100. Then I want to have a width of, sorry, width of 100 too. So yeah, and then I want to have a color of colors dot maybe yellow for the time being. Let's try running that. So yes, what happened is, so we created a row inside this particular column. Okay, so um, so what do we do? We can provide one more like few more containers. So outside this, I'm going to give one more. So now we have 3 containers inside this particular row. That is so this is what I said actually. So inside a row, it will be arranged, the widgets will be arranged as a arranged as columns, and inside columns it will be arranged as rows. So let's try changing this color to maybe, what do we say, orange, deep orange. Then this to maybe white. Okay, white. And let's try to reload this application right now. So yes, so now what happened? So now these things got arranged as rows inside this particular uh, so sorry, these things got arranged as a as different columns inside a row. So what we did was, when we defined a row widget over here, a row was allocated. Okay, it could have, it can have any value, like like its width ranges from this 0 over here to this whole screen. So to demonstrate that, I will just wrap this row to a container, and then provide a color value of colors dot black. Okay, so now you can understand that. Okay, so what happened was I defined a row, and its width is similar to that of this size screen. It will occupy all of that. And then we defined these children inside, these three childrens inside that particular row, so it got arranged as columns. Okay, so it might be kind of confusing for the time being to understand that if we define a row, the children will be arranged as columns. Then if we define a column, the children will be arranged as rows. It'll be kind of difficult at the time being. Okay, literally speaking, it took me around 2 weeks to understand that particular thing. Okay, so that's not an issue if you don't understand it. So what you can do is just try to go through it again and again and again. Okay, so if you define a column, the children inside that column will be arranged as rows, and if you define a row, the children inside that will be arranged as columns. Okay, so that's what we are speaking over here. So here also, the in the case of a row, the main axis will be what? The main axis will be this vertical one, and the cross axis will be this horizontal one. Okay, so let's try this, say, main axis alignment, and go with a main axis alignment dot, maybe let's try um, space between. Okay, so let's reload this application right now. So our this happened. Okay, our widgets got separated, so maybe we can try space uh, evenly. Yeah, maybe we can try that. Okay, now that's looking quite good, right? So we did that, and maybe we can do something more. Maybe let's go inside this container. I'm going to give a child that is an image. I'm going to open a bracket, then inside that I'm going to provide that image as in network image. Then I'm going to paste that like this URL inside that uh, that too. So once you paste that and run that, that image will be appearing inside that this particular one. Okay, as you can see over here, that happened. Okay, so yes, so actually this is one more thing, like if we are dealing with main axis, we should go with cross axis too. Cross axis alignment, it's cross axis alignment dot maybe stretch. We can try that. So this happened as expected. Okay, like we have these things as stretch too, so maybe we can go with end. So this is what I said earlier. So if we go with end, it will move towards the bottom. If we go with started, it will go towards the top. And if we go with maybe, what do we say, sender, it will be in the sender, uh, like the default one. Okay, so let's go with that. So let's change this black to some other color. Maybe let's remove that color and make the background visible. So I was set black defined. Okay, so since now we don't want this container over here to show this black background, I'm going to remove that. So you don't have to remove these containers manually. There's some feature available for that too. So just click on this container, then go to this bulb, then last one is remove this widget, and now that widget has been removed, so we don't have to get do anything and mess up with it. Okay, so yes, that's regarding it. So the final thing, we can reformat this into the .fmt, that is a dot format. So just select the whole code, and right click on that, and then select this option, that is reformat the code. So now our code appears a little bit okayish. That is kind of what easy to read, right? So the final thing, we can add something more. So since we have a single child scroll view, what we can do is we can add a margin to each containers. So maybe we can we have first one, we have the second one over here, the margin. So I'm going with it's in sets dot all with a 5 value. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it inside each uh, container. Okay, one more over here. Oh, not that, not over there, not over there. Outside this one. Okay, so now it looks kind of okay. So I'll just remove this extra margin over here. I'll go over here. I will just go with all for here too with a 5 value. So now it looks kind of equal, right? So yes, actually that's regarding this rows and columns. So hope you understood this thing. So if you have any doubt regarding columns and rows, just reach out to us. We are actually happy to help you. Okay. um, so yes, so this regarding the rows and columns, we'll be dealing with everything. Every UI is dependent on this rows and columns, so without that we can't survive in Flutter. Actually, it's kind of that much important. Okay, the proper arrangement of um, the rows and columns. So we'll discuss something more important later on. So till that, bye.